Hi everyone. Apparently I needed a stool because I'm too short for that, so hopefully I'll feel a bit taller. Right, so collaboration. I think it's been discussed a few times. Everyone is aware that we need to collaborate in order to achieve and deliver the infrastructure requirements that we have, especially for the 2030 vision in Saudi Arabia. With that, we have a very large panel, and within the panel we have a number of esteemed panel members I'd like to invite to the stage where we'll be discussing collaboration in further detail. First, I'd like to invite Amr Salah, Infrastructure Development Executive Director of the Royal Commission of AlUlA. Welcome to the board. Curry, Infrastructure Development Director at Qiddiya. Neil, Infrastructure Executive Director at AlUlA. There you are. Paul Pring, Senior Infrastructure Director at Diriyah Gate Development Authority. Mark Dyson, Director of Saudi Arabia, Turner and Townswood.
Yeah. He used to work in AlUlA previously, but now he's like...
Saleh, General Manager at the Saudi Accreditation Center. And last but not least, Mark Jameson, the UAE country representative of the Institute of Civil Engineers. Right, welcome all. I think it's quite a large discussion, hence why we have esteemed members from different angles. Obviously, DEFCOs all the way to institutes, and obviously bring a lot of experience, as well as obviously consultancy. Bring a lot of experience from not only what your role is at the moment, but also being involved in worldwide programs for infrastructure. The collaboration, it's been quite a topic that it's already been touched on earlier, so I'll try not to repeat ourselves in terms of what the issues are and etc. And let's talk about maybe the opportunities. First, I'd like to start with Mark. In regards to Mark, we have a lot of projects out there. We talk about some of the outcomes that we have from some of the initiatives out there around the world. And this is for Mark Jameson, sorry. How come we don't have lesson learned from what we have previously to some of the achievements we have, and why don't we have lesson learned within the organization itself?
I think the interesting thing with lessons learned is that there's often a big thing about fear of failure. And so part of the challenge is accepting that, you know, when we build things, not everything is built perfectly first time. So a large part of what has been learned in other parts of the world, particularly in the likes of the UK, with the introduction of the Infrastructure Client Group, and programs like Project 13, is that failure is acceptable. It's not what you want, clearly, but it's a good and probably the most important part of learning and moving forward. So taking lessons learned from both past successes and those less successful projects gives people a real opportunity to change the way that they move things forward. And that can apply across everything from design to health and safety, to process and procedures, to how you fund a project and how well you pay or manage the cash flow, all the way through. So, and we're starting to see some of those concepts adopted here. I mean, earlier you obviously heard from the Saudi Contractors Authority about the platforms they're creating. You heard from Expro about some of the lessons learned platforms that they're trying to create. So there's an element of anonymity, gives a level of security to people, but I think ultimately this is going to be driven by intelligent clients. We clearly have seen it in a number of industry sectors, particularly like sort of nuclear and rail, where the ability to adjust to those examples of really good practice, but equally the ones that didn't quite work, allows people to adapt their technologies. And I think you're seeing that also in terms of the built environment through things like modularization and adoption of BIM and digital twins.
Certainly, we see a lot of innovations happening. You mentioned Project 13 now, which is quite an interesting one. There's a lot of lesson learned that came in the UK. We've seen it being pushed in a lot of initiatives and a lot of programs across the UK. That really, I think Neil, it goes really nicely to your background in terms of certain things that you do within the contract models, and tell us from your experience how projects or initiatives such as Project 13 can have an impact on the contract models, and what contract models out there that we should have to achieve the infrastructure developments that we have in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, look, my personal opinion, I think the most successful contract models are the ones that have early engagement of key stakeholders. So I'm representing sort of AlUlA and the Red Sea today, so I wanted to give a few examples of the more collaborative type of contract models that we're using there, because we're using a wide range of contract models. For example, on the utilities for our main transmission infrastructure, including power and water generation, on both the Red Sea and AlUlA projects, we're using a PPP model, which is a concession model. In its very nature, it's a collaborative model because it gets the early involvement of developers, lenders, designers, contractors, operators, all working together at the outset of the project. So hopefully the end result of that should be more efficiency and better cost effectiveness, especially around design and whole life cost. So that's been quite successful, but there's also challenges associated with a contract model like a PPP model. We're working in a very, very fast-paced environment, whereas a PPP, it's a complex contract model. It takes time to procure. It's also very onerous in terms of change management. So that's a challenge that we've had on that model. We've also successfully used early contractor involvement on a number of projects where we get the contractors involved early in the process, during the design process. So that influences the type of design that we're coming up, thinking about the constructability, thinking about the materials, thinking about even the machinery that might be available in the market, and that gets us a more efficient design that then reduces our mobilization period as well as our construction periods when we reach site. On the opposite end of the scale from the PPP model, on our assets, we're looking at a construction management model where we're breaking up the construction packages into much, much smaller packages and going to the smaller contractors. So we're acting like a main contractor in this kind of environment. And what's driven us to do that is the inflation that we're seeing in terms of cost in the market, as well as the overheating in the market. So this allows us to reduce cost, hopefully get back on close to where our budgets are, as well as trying to develop our own contractor market there with the smaller contractors. We're not just going out to main contractors, we're also seeking out those smaller contractors and developing our own supply chain.
Absolutely.
So I think at the end of the day, just to summarize, there's no one size fits all contract model. You need to look at the type of project it is, the risk profile, and we're constantly reviewing the type of contracts that we use and market conditions and trying to improve and adapt to that.
Absolutely. Paul, you've got similar experiences within Diriyah Gate.
Yes.
Tell us about that. It sounds very similar to what a Red Sea and AlUlA is doing.
Very much so. This project we're delivering is one of that demands collaboration. I'm pleased to see some really good friends of mine in the audience today who work with us. They'll probably tell you, and you speak to them separately, we do employ a very collaborative arrangement. Now, the contract doesn't always allow for that. However, one has to be objective. I cannot deliver this project without my partners in contracting. I cannot deliver this project without my partners in consulting. So we have to go together and we have to deliver together. And without that model, it just won't work. We've done some amazing work so far. I see a good friend of mine, Fahad Masfer from Binya in the group here. Fahad has delivered a job that would be impossible when you look at it on the outside. But through good collaboration with the Diriyah Gate staff and with Fahad's staff and with the consultants involved, we've managed to deliver something that's nearly impossible. And we've done it in super quick time. We laid 9 kilometers of pipe in 3 weeks. That pipe is 1.8 meters in diameter. And it was excavated, installed, and backfilled in 3 weeks. I mean, that's an amazing achievement, all in a corridor that's little more than probably 10 meters wide. So, it can be done, but we have to work together to do it. And collaboration on a fitted contract isn't that easy. There are other collaborative models we should use, and we should think about maybe the NEC or other contracts like that.
Absolutely. It's very refreshing to hear DevCos such as yourselves and others as well that have looked at a partnership model rather than just a one-sided...
100%.
Yep.
If you don't partner, you will not make this work.
Absolutely. Now, in that regards, I think we know that standards and regulations might step in the way of doing some of the things that you'd like to do further. Saleh, I'd direct that question to you. What kind of standards and regulations out there that might ease this a little bit and allow us to have a win-win collaboration or partnership between different parties within a project for delivery?
Yeah, good question actually. Today we are in Kingdom not only applying 2030 vision, we are competent also on the indicators with World Bank. And to make sure that we are aligned with these indicators, we have to apply international standards. Let me talk about our experience for Saudi Accreditation Center for applying ISO standards, for example. Today we are applying accreditation for ISO 17025 for laboratory, and it's mandatory today by Ministry of Commerce. And also we are applying ISO 17020 for inspection bodies. And we are talking about many activities doing by inspections like welding, piping, infrastructure work, inspections, and all of this activities supported infrastructure in general. And also we give accreditation in ISO 17021 for certification issues. And we are extend our mandate as well because we just started before 2 years. But still, we are going on improve our capabilities to give more accreditation in this standards.
That's very interesting. And Amr, from a developer perspective, does standards and regulations step in a way when it comes to trying to do some partnership with your supply chain?
Definitely, of course, the basis for any developer to have a successful development and roadmap with his development successfulness is to assure that the standard regulations are helping this development to succeed. From day one, we need to assure that this roadmap and requirements, regulations, framework for our development, it can help us to accelerate the projects, assure that we have the right resources in place, and as well as it will give us the brief to assure that our ambitious goals are going to be achieved. Because without having a roadmap, without having a pathway how to do these projects, we will stop frequently. But we have to have a clarity and the end in mind in our development plan, and this is what it's called the proper strategy to achieve our goals.
Absolutely. Corey, I'll ask you the difficult question, the funding. Now we spoke about the regulations and standards and etc. That how it might have a bad implication or can direct your process in terms of how you can work with your delivery teams. What about funding? The funding scheme that we have, I'm not just talking about Saudi Arabia at the moment, I'm talking about worldwide. Does funding schemes stop us from or limit us from having a collaborative environment or a partnership between us?
Right, so this is an infrastructure forum, right? So I'll stay focused on infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So recognizing that infrastructure is, let's say, it's critical, right? I mean, without electricity, none of the giga projects will work. Without water, without irrigation, there will be no trees, there will be no flowers, there will be nothing. There will be no roads to go anywhere. So infrastructure, it's critical. It's a must. There's lots of things that we're doing now that are must-haves, and there's lots of things that we're doing that are nice-to-haves. Infrastructure is a must-have, so it has to be paid for somehow. And so the challenge, not only to Saudi Arabia, who we know is spending an enormous amount of money on infrastructure, but the challenge for everywhere, anywhere, any government, is to figure out how to pay for this. And so there are, to demonstrate how challenging this is, all you have to do is look at the number of business and financial consultants here in Saudi Arabia who are all studying this problem to try to figure out how to do a PPP in less than 4 years that actually makes economic sense, right? And PPPs aren't the be-all, end-all solution either, because they need guarantees. Banks want to make sure they're going to get their money back. They're not just going to take all of this risk. And so there's lots of different innovative ways. And infrastructure doesn't really make you any money. It's an enabler. You can't sell it. It actually enables other people to make money, right? And so it enables and attracts investment. So I don't have any one answer. There's lots of models that are being looked at right now. Privatization. I think I've seen models. I've seen some contracting inside Qiddiya. I won't talk about, like, I'm not but to bring contractors in and have them have skin in the game. I think that this is the real challenge to everybody, is to figure out how to get your infrastructure and stuff paid for with other people's money, right? And in order to do that, you have to convince them to have skin in the game. And in order for them to have skin in the game, they're going to want to have a reward for that, right? For funding that. So it's a very, very, very difficult challenge. The old traditional way of governments just writing checks for infrastructure is still going on to some extent here in Saudi Arabia and around the world, because citizens don't care, right? They want to be able to go to school. They want to be able to send their school. The average citizen of a country wants to get on a road and expects it to be a safe road. So there's a very delicate balance going on in this right now, and there's a lot of thinking and a lot of thought going into that, and it's a lot bigger challenge than people realize.
Actually, I wanted to add to Corey's statement here that Saudi has a different horizon of having a guarantee for the developers to come and invest in Saudi with a big security. Not because of the money, because of the demand. This is the differentiation of Saudi. They have the proper backbone to support these projects, to assure the successfulness of this type of investment in infrastructure and any other investment. I'm not talking about infrastructure only, any other investment. It is well guaranteed by the Saudi government, it will succeed. And this is giving a security and a proper offtake to investors to come and invest their money and technology, which is the other benefit of having this. Basically, everybody talks about PPP as a lack of money with the government, and that's why they are seeking cash to come outside, which is not the case here in Saudi. Saudi, they are actually want to have a collaboration with the technology, innovation, sustainability. They are looking ahead 20, 30 years from now, and they have a clear end in mind what Saudi should be at 2030 and beyond. And this is actually, the credit goes to the leadership of the kingdom to know it is not only about money, it is about how to migrate this technology into Saudi to grow the Saudi youth and to have this technology within Saudi, not from outside.
Absolutely. Talking about from delivering of 2030, I wanted to bring Mark Dyson into this conversation. Mark, with your involvement at CNC, involved with a lot of clients, you see a lot of clients having really good experiences and give good models, and some of them not so much.
Yeah,
do you not feel that they need some sort of macro collaboration between the two different
there's
developers?
lots of different challenges around funding, contract models, the delivery timescales, the ambition. So from I was looking at this from a macro level perspective when we spoke the other day, and it's if you look at sort of the demand and supply in Saudi Arabia at the moment, demand is on the rise, therefore prices are on the rise, supply is in decline, therefore schedules are becoming put at risk. So, we have to look at ways and means of how we can invest to mitigate and control cost risks, schedule risks, because ultimately schedule results in significant cost increase. So, you know, we really have to take a holistic view. You know, we need to get major programs talking to each other, whether that's Qiddiya, DGDA, King Salman Park, Sports Boulevard, NEOM. You know, they're all going to have a huge demand on concrete, steel, people, you know, accommodation. So if you can take that realistic view and you can all understand the various different requirements at any given time, and you were to map them out at a macro level as opposed to an individual project level, it allows not only local enterprise to be able to invest and make return on investment, but it also helps government inform investment decisions, you know, inform their investment decisions. Because ultimately funding and infrastructure it's a longer time to get your return on investment. You know, if you invest heavily in infrastructure, then you may not see returns for 20 years. You know, whether it's a new road, it's a new route between a port and an airport, or a port and a refinery facility. So, you know, there's taking that macro level view is really, really important.
Taking that macro level, I'll go back to Amr, and then probably others would want to chip into this. Do you envision any national or at least regional strategies or visions for macro? We've seen this in the UK. We mentioned the projects, the initiatives in the UK, and we've seen this in Singapore. We've seen some of it in the US. And we've seen certain strategies being developed, especially for PPP within the UK, such as the construction playbook. Do you vision anything that we can have for Saudi Arabia, or the vision?
Actually, if we go back about 20 years in the region, we found some countries in the region starting to have a regional, or let's say a localized vision for their demand, just to satisfy their ambitious vision, regardless if it is a hospitality, tourism. And we found we can find like 1 giga projects or 2 giga project per country. Okay, and this was driven by the leadership of those countries to get an attractiveness for their countries, and they succeed to do that. But 5 years back, when we have this Saudi 2030 vision, you can find this is very challenging and integrated. The beauty of the KSA vision, when we see this 5 years ago, we found we are talking about at least 10 giga projects, excluding the royal commissions to develop the cities itself, like Riyadh, Jeddah, and other big cities. We thought this is gonna to compete to each other, and they are actually talking the same language, and the people are just trying to expedite their progress. But when you go deeper, you find the leadership in the kingdom, they have a very clear end in mind. Actually, these projects are not competing each other. They are integrated each other. And this is the beauty of KSA vision. You cannot find this vision regionally. I claim this is internationally, that to have this collaboration and integration. What you can see in AlUlA as ambitious goals and objectives and targets and framework, it is integrated with Red Sea, integrated with AlUlA, integrated with NEOM, Diriyah. Everybody has its own flavor and its own targets and goals. And this is what gives the strength to Saudi vision. So we can integrate rather than compete. And this is giving the national vision the weight and the sustainability. Because if you go for competition between projects and giga projects, you will find some project will fail and other will succeed, of course. But if you find this is going to be integrated to each other, some projects are with industrial culture, some of them are hospitality, so they are integrated each other. Some of them are residential, some of them are maybe another commercial aspect. Some of them dependent on private sector collaboration, some of them are dependent on government. So you can find this diversification into your project portfolio. It is very rare to happen in the region, I claim, in the world. And we are in AlUlA, we take this as a lesson learned to articulate our vision in a clear end in mind. We have a clear program for infrastructure and AlUlA. We can know or we can understand what is coming until 2030 and 2035. Each year, what the packages need to be there so we can plan our projects ahead of time and assure our resources are available when it's needed.
Interesting. Paul, I'll bring into this from a what if we do have some sort of collaboration and a strategy or a vision, whether it's regional or within Saudi Arabia, what kind of things do we expect as benefits?
I think in terms of collaboration amongst projects even, not just inside projects, you raise a very important point. Now I've had visits from AlUlA, I've had visits from Qiddiya, I've had visits from AmAlA in the projects to talk about some of the things that we're doing, and they can learn lessons by it. So, for example, the Qiddiya guys came over to talk to me about power strategies. Our power strategy is very different to theirs. However, I think I'd rather theirs. Ours was quite difficult to run, and I think some of the lessons that we handed over to Qiddiya probably influenced their decision about which way they went with their project. So sometimes it's worth doing that. We had the guys from AlUlA come over. They wanted to talk about heritage and how we work with heritage systems and such like. We're working in Diriyah, which is Al-Tarif is really the home of Saudi Arabia. It's where Saudi Arabia was born, and we have to now deliver our project around that World UNESCO site. These guys were very interested to learn about that, and we clearly and freely showed our time and showed what we've been doing there. They take some lessons away, they learn by that, and they move forward. So it's freely given that kind of service to our fellows professionals in those projects. So I think it's really important that actually collaboration isn't just within our project. It's a wider thing. We need to look at Vision 2030 as a whole and all of the master plans and look at all of them and how can we help each other to move forward and deliver successfully, all of us.
Absolutely. Saleh.
When we looked overview all the projects for 2030, most of them started from the land nature. And I think most of the projects also succeed to make cooperation with the citizens in the areas. They try to knowledge transferring to them. They start to prepare these people to be active people working in the project for construction now and for operation and maintenance in the future. And I think there is a huge program for this, and they start to make a socialization for this in this project.
Absolutely. With that note, I'd like to leave it here, and then I'll come back to you guys.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
In terms of collaboration,
yes,
there is a lot of collaboration happening. I think we're doing reasonably well at it. As Paul mentioned, some of the Giga projects talking to each other at PIF level. They're also looking. We're facing huge supply chain issues globally. So they're trying to gather information from the different projects on what are the materials that we need and when do we need that. The Ministry of Energy as well is really active in terms of asking questions, trying to help us plan for the future. So I think we should be sort of praising in a way some of the really good work that is happening. But I think it could be better. Sometimes there's a bit of a hesitancy to collaborate and share too much information because we're working in a very competitive environment at the end of the day. But through these kind of forums and the other forums are being set up by PIF, we can build that trust with each other and have more collaboration going forward. It was great to see the Saudi Construction Association presentation and what they're doing and the platforms that they're producing to bring everybody together, and even sharing benchmarking information on pricing and these kind of things. That's really important to help us move these projects forward.
Absolutely. Having that kind of platform would definitely allow, and forums like this will hopefully push for more collaboration.
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, I'd like to just raise one other thing, and it kind of ties together this panel and the previous panel that we had. Some collaborative models that I've worked for in the past, both in the United States and in the UK, have relied on what they call alliances, where contractor, client, consultant and suppliers all get together in the same team. And it's done with one man, one job. Okay, there's no man marking. We don't have a team of consultants, looking after what the builders do. The builders look after themselves. The consultant might be looking after another part of the project, but we try to do that in a successful way. And I'd like to tell you a story about one of the ones I did, and that is the National Grid program in the UK, which was one of the longest lasting alliances that we've ever had. Okay, lasted for more than 10 years. They delivered many substations in the UK. It was done on the basis of, the people work for the alliance. Their paymaster is just somebody who gives them the money at the end of the month. Okay, but their team is the alliance. It's not their company. And there isn't any room. We used to actually find people in the office in the beginning days if they mentioned their company name. And actually, that rubbed off in about 3 or 4 months. They put £1 in the pot for the biscuits on Friday or whatever. But at the end of the day, that gelled that team together to a point where jobs like National Grid were delivered successfully. Why did they do that? Well, look at the time when we did that. There was a skill shortage. Electrical engineering was one of those things under pressure. So we brought electrical engineers together. We gave them a remit to stay together, and they did in the main stay together. But in this day of skill shortages, where we're struggling to find enough people, why are we man-marking? Isn't it better to be collaborative, work together in a successful model like an alliance, and actually deliver together? Because at the end of the day, I can't deliver without my partners.
Absolutely.
It's very important to us.
Absolutely. That goes back to what Mark was saying earlier about lesson learned, especially from other industries as well, not just within the industry around the world. Mark, do you want to add into that?
Yeah, I think, and like Paul, I've experienced a number of alliances, and silly little things make a big difference. And a large part of that is that by bringing people together, you expose some of the underbelly of issues that irritate. So, an RFI that takes sort of a week to get back to a contractor when he needs it in 2 days, and everyone is sort of up in arms and in denial about it. But the reality is that what it took. And then through sitting in an alliance workshop, you basically expose how that happened, and you come up with a solution, which was to shortcut it. Because in this particular case, it went from the contractor to the engineering consultant to their office in Glasgow, then went down to the MEP lead consultant in Derby, then went to somewhere else. The actual response took probably half an hour to issue, but the process by which the RFI was responded to took a week. Taking that point, and I think a key part of that is, and interesting enough, at AlUlA they're starting to do this, is to integrate their consultants as trusted partners, and taking that approach is undoubtedly starting to reap some of the rewards. I think one of the key challenges remains, whilst the people are willing, the funding and the contracting types don't yet give us the backing to allow us to do this properly. One of the key things for me is, cash flow is, and particularly in these times of extreme stresses on the supply chain, and we're seeing it, likes of steel going up 80% in certain areas. It is about us getting out that sort of responses. 2012, London Olympics, ODA paid their contractors without a blink of an eye, 8 days maximum. 8 days. Right? Not 60, not 120, 8. Why can't we do that? Why can't we find ways to expedite it? Because all of that oils the wheels. It creates a level of trust amongst the various parties that come together. And as you say, Paul, it's then the easier bit becomes about reducing the man-marking, making the project efficient and effective, and also, ultimately, as we're starting to see in AlUlA, there only being one objective. Everybody is aligned with the same outcome and driven to achieve that, not what the name tag says and which company they came from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think, Mark,
Yes.
you hit the nail on the head there. You said the word trust. And trust is the backbone of collaboration, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And if you approach a contracting model in a way that means trust is hard to gather, then so it's a really tough thing to get around.
I couldn't agree more, but we discussed that we need collaboration, micro within the organization or the different departments within a certain organization and within the organization and others, not only with the delivery partners, but also the other partners or other DevCos.
The whole supply chain, yes.
The whole supply chain.
Yes, of course.
However, now this is a question I want to maybe ask for everyone to contribute to. With the construction boom that we have at the moment, globally, and within Saudi Arabia, there's going to be limited resources, limited everything, okay? We have to be competitive one way or another to make sure that we can achieve our goals for delivery, because at the end of the day, we need to deliver our projects. And as you rightly mentioned, not always that everyone have to represent the badge that they're wearing, but in reality, this is the case. How can we realize the delivery requirements that we have within our organizations, but in the same time achieve an ultimate goal for the Vision 2030? Because if AlUlA succeeds, but the other projects that may be next door to you doesn't succeed, the whole vision will not achieve what they want to achieve. So maybe I'll start from this side and go further. How do you think we should balance between the collaboration requirements and the fact that it's so beneficial for us to get a win-win situation, and the fact that we have to be competitive as well and try and achieve what we want to achieve in terms of delivery?
To be honest, this is very tricky questions, and I don't want to reveal our strategies how to be differentiated from other projects, to be honest.
There you go.
However, I believe still collaboration is a key. And this is required to have a proper alignment, not only from a developer perspective, contractors, consultant, also from a regulatory perspective. Let me give you an example. If we are all building electricity network and we are only seeking for one type of cables need to be there, no factory in Saudi or no factory in the world can satisfy the demand for this project. Simple as that. So that means we need to open the horizon for the standard specifications. We need to review our standard specifications. We need to assure that we can go for a wider range of products, and our supply chain should be widened so we can assure the supply chain can satisfy all these demands over the next 5 years. Actually, this ambitious vision for 30 years, it should be satisfied in 5 years. There's a lot of actually other actions, how to be innovative in our contracts, how to be more incentivizing our contractors and the consultants. Somebody is talking about paying contractor in cash in advance so they can mobilize faster and they can provide. And this is actually a complete equation. We need to provide a space for contractor for mobilization, some offtake for them to be, especially for the remote projects, a proper contracts with a percentage for sharing the profit if they can have an innovative design and innovative methodology of construction, which is saving me time and money. There should be shared profit for both parties. I don't want to take the time for others because I know that they have a lot of ideas for this.
Some really good insight. Corey?
Well, first of all, collaboration and competitiveness are not mutually exclusive. Okay, so I think that the culture here in the region that I've seen a lot is that somehow being secretive and keeping information to yourself is competitive. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Now, I think that you have to be, there's a certain amount of appropriateness that has to be understood, right? And there are certainly confidential, strategic things that are going on within a company. But within these giga programs, there absolutely should be collaboration in the areas where it's appropriate. And for example, let's take smart cities. Well, what is the DGDA doing with respect to smart cities? What is Qiddiya doing with respect to smart cities? What is Red Sea doing with respect to smart cities? smart cities is a really good area where like collaboration would be so key, because it's such a big, broad, open concept that has many different meanings to other people, and everybody says, you know, you want to have this a very smart city, but well, what does that mean? Well, what does it mean to DGDA? What does it mean? And then there are the lessons learned, which Neil talked about. Well, how much are you paying for a cubic meter of concrete over there? How much are they paying over there? Well, why are they paying so much different when they're 10 kilometers away? And so there's sharing of stuff like that. There's sharing of standards and specifications, which Amir is talking about, which creates economies of scale for purchasing materials and things like that. So there's a lot of room for collaboration that will actually make the Giga programs more competitive, not less competitive. So I think that the first way to achieve this would be to recognize and be open to collaboration, right? So I think the fact that everybody came here today to this forum indicates that there's an openness to learn new ideas, to be, you don't just shut new ideas down. You learn from new ideas. You be open to hearing new ways of doing things. And that's really how we're going to be creative and innovative and face all these challenges that we're facing.
Absolutely. Neil?
Yeah, I think the guys have covered it nicely already. Amir touched about materials availability. We're facing a global construction boom at the moment, and we're all fishing from the same pool, which is a very limited pool in terms of resources, whether that be people or materials. So I think we need to try and increase that pool, number one, here in Saudi Arabia, by making it easier for people and companies to get here and to get here quickly and open up and staff up. I think the previous panel discussed this in probably more detail when they were talking around, bringing people here, training the workforce for what's coming. So I think this is a real key area that we need to focus on and plan for the future.
Absolutely. Paul?
Yeah, a couple of issues. One I see with materials is just time to build. Okay, now we're doing things in incredibly short timescales here. Diriyah Gate is 3 times the size of Dubai downtown. As an example, it took them 20 years to build. We're trying to do that in 8. Okay, it takes a lot of work to make that happen. However, one of the things I would say is, if we go to the supply chain and we tell the supply chain what our plans are, they can build. So as an example, I went to see our friends in Al-Fana who make electrical paneling, for example. Now, they're the foremost in Saudi Arabia, the best ones they are. If they know what my requirements are, they can build to actually enable them to supply us and the other Giga projects. But we have to give them an understanding in advance as to what we want to do. So that's collaboration with people we're not even in contract with. It helps them to help us. And then the second one really for me is about people. I have been absolutely amazed by the quality of Saudi Arabians that come to work for me. The quality is second to none. Okay, I see some of my friends from work here, colleagues that work with me in the infrastructure division. I'll tell you a little story about one of them. Okay, one of these guys came to me to work as an EA. Superstar of a guy. He was one of the best guys I had in my team, a real nice guy to work with. But I saw through that in about 30 seconds that he wasn't an EA. What he actually was a really good project manager. And so we moved him and promoted him and put him in there. And he's now, burgeoning APM, working quite well in Diriyah Gate Phase 1, and he's really doing some good work in there. Now, why did that happen? There's 2 things about people that really they set me on fire. One of them is the downside, which is availability is not a skill. Just because someone's there doesn't mean say they're good. Okay, so be choosy about what you take. The second one is anyone with passion and heart can be taught skills. Okay, so attitude is everything. I can't teach attitude. You come with it and that's it. But I can teach you skills. So I've got someone that's a bit raw and doesn't have the skills. I will bring them into the group willingly and actually put them with experienced guys and show them how to do the job. But you know what? Saudi Arabians, they're really good quality engineers, all of them that I work with. And I commend them to you guys, so you should use them.
Absolutely. You touched on people, and I tried not to because we had the earlier session about that.
Yes.
But absolutely, 100%. Mark?
Yeah, I think what Paul said there is really appropriate. If you give the supply chain a pipeline, visibility of pipeline, it allows them to respond. You know, if you look at, I had a really good example of this the other day where we talked about specialist compost. Not a topic that we would associate with traditional infrastructure, but you know, there's a huge demand for specialist compost because of all of the different types of trees that are going to be imported into Saudi Arabia. But now we're talking about, rather than importing the soil from somewhere else, there's now a potential to invest in a new company which will produce and manufacture the compost locally in Saudi Arabia. So it provides an opportunity for local enterprises to respond to the challenges that we've got on these major programs. And that's a really good example of where collaboration can contribute.
Transparency,
Yeah.
yeah, key. Saleh.
Yes, sir. Engineer Thabet Al-Sawyeed, Governor for Saudi Contractors Authority, he present today. By the way, I'm one of the founders for the authority. That's why I will support my old team. He highlight that we have 170,000 contractors today, and 98% of them is medium and smaller. And we can agree that this type of contracts not ready to work in this mega project. If we are looking for ready contractors to work in that project, that we are looking in 2% only for the contractors, and they are already full of project now. What we need to do to build the capabilities for these contractors to start working in real, indeed, in the sites, and we have nothing to do too much while the Saudi Contractors Authority already have initiatives, more than 34 initiatives up to now. They can support these contractors, just build the cooperation with the authority, and you will find all supported in this field. That's all.
Interesting. So enabling an ecosystem that will help us to deliver our projects, basically. And last but not least, Mark.
Okay, trying to summarize this, I think it comes down to three things: trust, attitude, cash. Get those in, the chances are you're going to be successful.